Welcome to Clutch and Go, where for our third installment of Mazda month, I'm going to give you my first impressions of the Mazda 2 behind me. Now, despite its purple color, which some people might actually like, we see that it's still a very good looking car. It is still based on Mazda's new design, and it is translated into quite a nice looking package in the Mazda 2. We can even see the rear looks good, which is where a lot of budget-friendly hatchbacks are really lacking in exquisite stylistic features. Now I have the top of the line model here, the 1.5 litre diesel Hazumi, and as we see, it has keyless entry as the previous two models. And when you look at the interior, everything seems very familiar, because it is more or less exactly the same as the interior of the CX-3, except for there being a clear difference in the steering wheel. There are less buttons. Not that that should really mean anything. And if you look at the instrument binnacle, we see that the speedometer has a slightly different look as well, seeing as we see a speedometer and not a rev gauge like we did in the previous two models. The rev gauge is there on the left, which you will see in action a bit later. We see we have the same infotainment system, same air conditioning unit, same automatic gearbox, and same infotainment system controls and stowage spaces here as we did on the CX-3. The only difference other than that interior wise would be the size and the fact that there are no Bose speakers, so no Bose sound system, which is slightly disappointing, but I mean, you can't really expect too much on a budget hatchback. Now if we look at the back, you might notice that it is quite small, which I shall attempt to show you now. Now, as I am about 1 meter 85, 87, somewhere around there, I haven't actually measured myself in quite some time, we will see that getting into the back is slightly challenging, seeing as I might actually prod the driver. It is very uncomfortable if you don't lift the headrests, but once that has been lifted, it is slightly better. But still, someone my size, as you can see, I am literally against the roof here, which will be extremely inconvenient in something like an accident. Hopefully those don't happen though. But realistically, this is not the type of car that you'll use to commute a lot of people around. Realistically, this is a little city car for one, maybe two people to use at a time, and you can obviously fit 2, maybe 3 very small children at the back. But in general, this is not what people use these little hatchbacks for. If you are one to commute with a lot of passengers, you will most probably rather look at something like the Mazda 3 or CX-3 if you want to buy into the whole CUV market, which I'm not fond of, as you now know. Now, one of the really nice things about the Mazda 2's interior is that you can adjust the seat to be quite low, while you can also adjust the steering wheel to sit quite high, which gives you that sporty feeling, which is perpetuated by the rest of the Mazda 2's cabin. If we take a look at the boot, we will see that it is obviously small, seeing as this is a little hatchback, but it is still quite spacious. You can easily fit 2-3 people's luggage in here without much issues. It is quite deep, seeing as there's no false floor, so in general this boot should suffice for your daily needs. But now let's take this little Mazda 2 for a drive. Okay, so let's first discuss the drivetrain. This is the 1.5 liter turbo diesel engine, seeing as it is at the top of the range Hazumi model. This turbo diesel engine produces 77 kilowatts of power and about 220 Newton meters of torque. And all of this torque is available at around about 1,500 revs, which equals fun that might potentially be had. Now, because of all of this, this little Mazda 2 is supposed to be propelled from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just under 10 seconds, which I can confirm. Don't ask how. Now, the only problem with the engine is that the turbo diesel technology feels slightly old. Not the engine itself. Okay, the Sky Active technology in this Mazda 2, just like in the Mazda 3 and CX-3, is amazing. It's just the turbocharger. There is quite some significant turbo lag before the turbocharger kicks in and really gives you that boost. Now, when you try to make the 0 to 100 run, you experience about a second, maybe even a second and a half of turbo lag, which means that if Mazda could sort out the turbo lag, you should realistically be able to propel the Mazda 2 from 0 to 100 in under 9, maybe even around 8 seconds, okay, which would be amazing. Now, what does all of this mean, this entire package? What does this entire package mean for the average consumer? Okay, so this is a compact little hatchback. Okay, we see a lot of them on our roads, especially in South Africa, because they are fairly budget friendly and they are cheap to maintain, unless you drive a Volkswagen, which is ridiculously expensive to maintain. And this is where this makes so much sense, because this Mazda is good value for money, seeing as you can buy the top of the line petrol model for around 235,000 Rand, whereas this turbo diesel model costs just under 300,000 Rand, which is a lot of money considering the gap between this and the model just below it. So most people will opt for the petrol engine option. Now, besides for that, this is a very easy car to manage, it's a very easy car to handle, and it's a very easy car to live with on a daily basis. You have your infotainment system, which is nice, you have keyless entry, which is nice, and just on top of all that, you are comfortable. As far as budget-friendly hatchbacks go, the Mazda 2 is extremely comfortable to be in. Handling-wise, we have electrically assisted power steering, such as in most modern vehicles. And that is fine for the average consumer, okay? That is okay. But I don't like it, because I like to see myself as a driver of some sort. I need the steering to fight back a little, in the sense that it actually gives me feedback. I have zero feedback from the steering, which is super annoying for me. But that's just me. An average person would find this perfectly fine and comfortable and easy to handle. I, on the other hand, like to know where the car's going. I like to know exactly what's happening beneath me, and I would very much like to place myself in a corner. That's the one thing I can't do in this little hatchback. I can't place myself in a corner. When I'm going around a corner, I constantly find myself still shifting the steering wheel around slightly, and I don't like that. I want to know exactly what's happening at all times. That being said, when you corner more exuberantly in the Mazda 2, the handling does improve quite a lot. Then you get much more resistance from the steering. But I do not suggest that you go test that and find it out for yourself. Now, besides for the steering, the suspension is much more forgiving, or rather more supple, than it is on the Mazda 3 and CX-3. Not that those models' suspension are hard, there's just obviously a bit more higher spec. The suspension in the Mazda 2 handles everything with absolute ease and grace. You don't feel any shocks, you don't notice any weird bumps. Everything is smooth sailing overall in the Mazda 2. It does mean that when you corner, you have a lot more body roll, but still significantly less than you do in most budget hatchbacks. So overall handling of the Mazda 2 for what it is kind of great. I would give it that. It is sort of fantastic compared to a lot of other cars. There's only one vehicle in particular that is not a sports hatchback that I would highlight above the Mazda 2 in terms of handling, and that may be the Suzuki Swift. But overall, small chassis base on this car handles very, very well. Now, to get back to the sportiness. As we see, Mazda's current design language is very sporty and it's nice to look at, and that's fantastic. I love it. But compared to the other two that I've driven so far, the Mazda 2 falls short in its sportiness when it comes to the overall characteristics of the car on the road, which again is perfect for the average consumer. That's fantastic. But due to the handling not being quite to my liking, and to the throttle response that's not too great due to the turbo diesel, it does lose the overall sporty quality that is perpetuated by the cabin. And that is kind of sad for me, but then again I have to admit that this is not the type of car that is targeted at someone like myself. But again, that being said, I still find a lot to love in the Mazda 2 as someone who enjoys driving. For instance, the gearbox. The gearbox is fantastic. It is perfect for your daily commutes in and out of town, in and around town. It's fantastic. And on the main roads, on the highways, it's even better because you have 6 gears, which means unlike most little hatchbacks, you can surpass the 120 km/h speed limit when and where applicable with absolute ease. It's fantastic. And on top of all of that, because this is a little turbo diesel engine, the fuel efficiency is amazing. With my exuberant driving now and again, sort of when it is applicable, I get around 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers consumption, which is very, very good. That means if you drive conservatively, you should easily get about 800 kilometers out of this little Mazda's fuel tank, which is fantastic. Okay, so overall impression of the Mazda 2 Hazumi is that it is overall seriously a great car. It is very comfortable to drive. It has all the things that you might ever need in a car, and for the average person this is just more than enough, and it offers you exceptional value for money compared to many other compact hatchbacks. The price for what you get in the Mazda 2 actually begs the question, why would people still bother buying anything else unless they have a particular liking in a brand or in a specific model? My only suggestion would be to maybe opt for one of the petrol models, which is significantly cheaper than the Hazumi, and you will still get more or less the same performance, but hopefully the handling might be better for people like myself, seeing as the reduced weight over the front axle might improve the handling somewhat. But overall, great little car. And if you are in the market for a hatchback and you do not know what to get this. You will not be unhappy, you will mostly be impressed, and I really think there won't be any turning back for you. That's it from Clutch and Go and Mazda 2. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Help us grow and stick around. We still have a lot in store for you.